Hello, this is the Geezer and I'm in Geezerville. And what you're about to see is a year in review. A review of little clips, little tapas like in a restaurant from each of my 9 episodes of Echoes of Deception. Now it took me about almost 9 months to create them. And I learned so much over that time frame. And I didn't try to cherry pick these clips. I'm not trying to do any fancy cinematography or transitions between clips. I'm just trying to give that person who happens to find this video an idea of what Echoes of Deception is about. And I'm hoping to capture their interest and have them, most importantly, join the community in Geezerville. And all are welcome from all parts of our culture and for all ages. Because what I'm trying to capture is how dangerous it is in this day when we're surrounded by information pollution, how dangerous it is for a false narrative to take hold and get amplified, and how that narrative can echo way into the future. Now, I found that particularly intriguing, and also it gave me hope. Because there have been many times in the history of humanity and our species where that's been true. And we're storytellers. We're all storytellers. And that's what brought us together to be one of the most powerful species on the planet. So, if that whets your appetite, I hope you enjoy these clips. And if you do, think about sharing them with a friend who might not have found them. You know, it helps an old man like me an awful lot, more than you know. With that, I'm going to wish you a wonderful winter season. And for those of you who have managed to find in your heart a willingness to hit that subscribe button so that you get an email every time one of these episodes drops. Now don't worry, I've got a whole lineup for 2026, and the first one will launch in January, as promised. So that being said, have a wonderful day, and I hope you enjoy what you're about to see. Thanks so much. Book, A Lie in a World That Changed Forever. Imagine living in a world where a single book could turn your neighbor, your friend, and even your own family against you. Hey, welcome back. This is my new podcast series, Echoes of Deception. And for those of you who haven't found my storytelling channel yet, it's on YouTube, and it's called the Geezerville Chronicles. In one of my playlists, you'll find podcasts, and in the podcast area, just click on Echoes of Deception, and you can catch up on all the latest episodes. So that's all for now, and let's begin, because storytelling is one of my favorite things ever. If you think about it, it was a body of lies that were amplified by the technology of the times. And this is one of the first examples that I personally know of where this is the case. And I guess the way, if you're younger listening to this and the printing press doesn't mean much to you, think about it in terms of social media. You can publish something, print something. It doesn't have to be true. It oftentimes isn't true. It's somebody's bias on information that they have, and they a lot of times believe in it. But the danger isn't in the freedom to do that. The danger is in amplifying that message because it causes other people to act on it. And that's the real danger in this idea of amplifying lies, and how one person, just one person, can influence history over decades of time. And as I created the story, I realized that people don't always have a choice in life, the hand they're dealt. And witches and their living reality in medieval times were fueled by fears and anxieties about life events, things like plagues, crop failures, child mortality, economic hardship, and social unrest, especially social unrest. During the times of war or changing power dynamics, fear of conspiracies and secret plots fueled the witch hunts as a means of controlling dissent among the people. Can't you see it now? Signs in protests saying, blame it on the witches, blame it on the witches among us. And clearly, it seems to me that we always have a choice on what to believe. And our job is to make the right choice. This modern surveillance reflects the deep-seated misogynistic impulse to control women's bodies and their choices, that the same things that enabled the medieval authorities to wield power over midwives and unwed mothers. So the tactics have changed. Social media has changed. Legal reporting hotlines exist, but the underlying impulse to police and punish women for defying norms, patriarchal norms, is chillingly familiar. On that note, I'm going to conclude episode 3 because it's a nearly perfect transition to the next episode, where I'm going to ask the question, what does it take to stop someone like Kramer, who was a misogynistic bully, a compulsive liar, and someone who had no ability to empathize or care about the impact of his own actions on others? And in order to do that, we're going to go back to another character that I've mentioned before, and her name was Helena Schuberin. And Helena spoke truth to power, and it had consequences. And then we're going to transition to 1956, where Helena's spirit found another home in a woman standing on a porch in Montgomery, Alabama. They call forth a special surprise witness on that day. It's a young lady that's only 25 years old and yet very accomplished. She is, at that time, the former aide to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who was President Donald Trump's right-hand man, and in the presence of millions of viewers to testify. And she does something no other seasoned politician would dare. She tells the truth. On that day, Hutchison testifies that then President Trump knew his supporters were armed just prior to the insurrection. She reveals that he wanted security removed so that those protesters could march to the Capitol. She shared how he lunged at a Secret Service agent when told that he couldn't go himself. Her words that day reshape the public understanding of what January 6th was about, not as a chaotic protest, but as a premeditated attempt to subvert democracy. And it cost her. She lost mentors, She lost friends, she received threats, and at one point she had to move from her home and live in isolation. But like Helena and like Coretta, she refused to be silenced. I have nothing to hide, I have nothing to gain, and I have everything to lose, she told the committee, and she still spoke. So what does a 15th century Austrian woman and a black mother standing on a porch in Montgomery, Alabama, and a Gen Zer, a whistleblower, what do they all have in common? Well, one thing is they stood when it would have been easier to kneel or to run away. And the other thing is they spoke when silence would have been much easier. And they resisted. They resisted power, the power of the state, of communities, and of the church. People and institutions who told them to shut up and sit down. They carried an innate sense of dignity and unshakable knowledge that they were not less. So they refused to be dehumanized. They held on to memory and witness, refusing to forget the wrongs they'd seen. And above all, they knew right from wrong. They drew strength from moral conviction, a belief in a higher justice no courtroom, no Congress, no church could erase. In essence, they believed in justice. They leaned on community and solidarity, knowing that even in lonely moments, they were not alone. It's clear to me they reached out. They armed themselves, each of them with education, awareness, and learning to see through the lies of power. And they used their tools, those tools that education provided them, for critical thinking. They nurtured an imagination of another world, daring to picture what freedom might look like. So you see, they had a story and a vision, and they believed in it. They endured steadfastly under all the terror. They stood firm against all the threats that were meant to break them. They had unbreakable conviction. And above all, they clung to truth as power, knowing that speaking it, even softly, was more dangerous to oppressors than silence. These are the unseen pillars of defiance, pillars as old as Helena's courtroom, as urgent as Coretta's bomb porch, and as modern as Cassidy's testimony under oath. But can these pillars crumble? What do you think? I'd love to hear your comments. Can the human will to resist falter under the weight of smothering power? I want to believe not. I want to believe there are always those who walk into rooms where they're not supposed to speak, and they speak anyway. That there are legacy builders strong enough to outlast the lies told in our time. That's what I believe. But history suggests that I might be wrong. History also finds exceptions. Ordinary people faced with extraordinary challenges that even in the darkest hours stand. Before we wrap up, I'd like to give you a little bit of a roadmap on where we're headed in the near term. In episode 8, we're going to drill down a bit, and I'm pulling a few threads of story, and we're going to examine Coretta Scott King's background in more detail. And I think you'll find that extremely interesting. And then in episode 9, I'm going to tell you a very personal story, something that has echoed all through my life. It was my first encounter with a black student by the name of Gregory James. In episode 10, we'll turn to literature, to Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn, and to Percival Everett, the Pulitzer Prize winner for his book James. And we'll connect those two stories in episode 11 by discussing and going inside of a book called Cast by Isabel Wilkerson, a book that really changed my life in perspective. A woman who was capable against the odds of trying to understand the sources of our discontent. I find her story and her book amazing, and I hope you will too. And one last thing. If you enjoy this storytelling as much as I do creating the stories, I would hope you'd hit the subscribe button, because it helps me more than you know. And it keeps these stories alive at a time when I think they're relevant to all of us. So, having said that, as always, have a great day.